The video game industry is one dominated by the glimmering glisten of AAA. It makes sense given the spectacle and grandeur of these blockbuster games, but we can't forget about the indies. Those quirky little games you don't fully understand. There are countless independent games worth checking out each year, but only a handful are able to break through the noise and grab the attention of the greater gaming community. Last year we had Balatro and Animal Well. Now, in 2025, we have Blueprints. This unique roguelite puzzle hybrid has critics raving, currently standing tied as the highest rated game of this year. Can the game possibly live up to that level of acclaim? Well, before we can answer that question, what is Blueprints? I was confused about that before taking the plunge to play for myself, but now I know what I'm talking about. The concept is simple. I know hearing either puzzle or roguelite may have you running for the hills, but stick with me here for a minute. You play as Simon P. Jones, a young man who's been bequeathed a massive mansion by your great-uncle Herbert S. Sinclair. There's a catch though. The only way you get to keep the mansion is if you manage to find its mysterious 46th room. Yeah, this place is big. That may sound simple enough, at least in theory, but there's another catch. A lot of catches here. Every day, when you return back to the mansion to continue your search, the entire layout changes. That's right, we got ourselves a crazy resetting mansion. I'm not even sure that I'd really want the place at this point, but hey, we've come too far to bail now. So, in a nutshell, you're tasked with poking around this big house to find the elusive 46th room. Okay, sounds easy enough. Where's the challenge? Why not just walk into every single room until you find number 46? Well, it's not that simple. Blueprints has some tricks up its sleeve. Let's begin with the core gameplay loop. Each day, you begin in the mansion's front lobby, which contains 3 doorways leading to other rooms of the house. What are these 3 rooms, you ask? Well, that's up to you. Each time you open a door, you're presented with 3 blueprints. Oh, okay, I see what you did there, Blueprints. Each of these blueprints corresponds to a potential room that could be built onto the house. We've got bedrooms, hallways, a gym. There are dozens of different rooms that can be drafted, but you can only access the 3 that are presented to you at any given time. Once you make a selection, the door opens and you walk into the very room you just picked. Pretty cool. Okay, so what's to stop me from just laying out 45 rooms in a row until I get to 46? Come on, you know Blueprints has a plan. Regardless of which rooms you select, you have to abide by the confines of this grid. It's 5 squares wide and 9 squares tall. So let's say that you build 2 squares to the left. Even if this leftmost room features a door that would continue further onto the left, its placement at the edge of the grid means that the doorway will be boarded up, functionally turning it into a wall. On top of that, some rooms are dead ends, like a closet or lavatory. Initially, it seems like you may be able to frolic through the mansion without a second thought, but between the confines of the grid and dead-end rooms, you're bound to eventually run out of options. These confines mean that you have to be careful when considering how you craft the space. Reckless decision-making means that you can quickly turn a hallway into a dead end. The process of crafting the layout of the mansion is wonderfully contemplative. During my first run, I found myself obsessing over the perfect way to fill the grid with rooms. I slowly moved upward towards the antechamber, the only room in a fixed position beside the entrance, managing to fill in every single square, at least for a while. This mechanic is unlike anything I've played in recent memory, something I always appreciate in a medium with which I'm so familiar. It may look a little intimidating, but I want to make very clear that it's not. By the end of the first run, you'll have a full grasp on placing the rooms. The grid view makes it look like some sort of massive puzzle, which it is in essence, but you're only ever dealing with 1 room at a time, and you have a lot of flexibility to experiment. I never felt like placing 1 room in the wrong spot was going to ruin my run. Just keep playing around. Beyond the confines of the mansion, Blueprints places a number of other limitations on the player to create challenge. The first one you'll likely notice is that you can only take so many steps. Thankfully, walking around a room doesn't expend any, but walking from one room to another does. Crossing through a doorway costs 1 step, which may not seem like a big deal considering that you start with 50. Keep in mind though, every time you walk into a different room, you lose a step, even if it's a room you've already explored. That means if, for some reason, you need to walk back to an earlier portion of the house, the trip can easily cost you 20 or more steps. If you're worried about this limitation, fear not, as you can gain steps as well. No, it doesn't really make sense that someone would grow too tired to stop walking around after 50 steps, but neither does a mansion that changes its layout on a daily basis. You gotta suspend that disbelief. The various rooms house a number of different items that can help you along your journey. Most common are keys, coins, and gems. Keys, unsurprisingly, unlock doors. Initially, every door you encounter is unlocked, but as you proceed further into the mansion, security grows tighter. Without keys, a locked door is just another dead end, so you need to keep an eye on your supply. Gems, on the other hand, enable you to place special rooms that can only be accessed by spending those shiny stones. These gem rooms are often very valuable, providing you with items or throwing other room types into the pool of potential rooms that can be drafted. Finally, coins can be spent at specific rooms on keys, gems, or even other items that can assist you along the way. Alright, I know that may have sounded like a lot, but I can't overemphasize how much you don't need to be intimidated. I certainly was, and if it weren't for the sky-high reviews, I likely would have skipped this game, but one of Blueprint's greatest strengths is how approachable it is. In my first few hours, I kept waiting for that brick wall moment where I suddenly felt completely stuck and out of things to try. That never happened though, by design. The loop of the game constantly throws something new at you, allowing you to re-examine familiar sights in a new light. There is no brick wall in Blueprints, you can just build a door through it. That is not to say that Blueprints lacks depth, it most certainly does not. This game functions like a puzzle box, with more and more of its intricacies revealed the longer that you play. They're just doled out in a way that prevents the player from being overwhelmed. It really speaks to how ingenious the hybridization of puzzler and roguelite is. The randomized, dynamic nature of a roguelite meshes perfectly with the head-scratching nature of a puzzle game. I'll be the first to admit that the puzzle genre tends to be one of my least favorites. I just find myself losing patience so quickly, unwilling to beat my head against the wall until I find a solution. Here, though, I constantly feel like I'm making headway. Even if I'm just walking into a room I've already visited before, there's always a chance I'll discover some detail I've never previously picked up on. I was worried that Blueprints was immediately going to inundate me with some head scratcher in every room that I wouldn't be smart enough to figure out, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the game even labels which rooms have a puzzle in them so you can be prepared to get those mental gears turning. And yes, I am saying roguelite, not like. I'm a big fan of either, but my preference leans towards the former because I love permanent progress. I love the feeling that I'm making future runs easier for myself, even if this run isn't the one where I achieve victory. Obviously, Blueprints isn't going to increase your damage output or grenade count, but it will outfit you with permanent upgrades to make your life easier, such as starting every day with more steps. If you need that feeling of forward momentum in your video games, Blueprints has you covered. This is a game filled with so many smart mechanical, material decisions, but what may be my favorite part is entirely intangible. There's a certain fulfillment to Blueprints that I just cannot get enough of. Slowly peeling away the layers of this humongous house all by yourself is equal parts tranquil and melancholy. Certain rooms, when built on the edge of the mansion, enable you to breathe in the outdoor air before heading back into the labyrinth. I've always wanted to have free reign inside a huge structure full of surprises and secret passageways, but when am I going to get the chance to actually experience that? Blueprints may be the closest I ever get. The atmosphere of this game is just so calming, so welcoming, so, dare I say, cozy. In a medium filled with NPCs, quest markers, and headshots, this is a game that reminds you of how much untapped potential there still is to be mined, or perhaps more appropriately, drafted. More than anything, Blueprints is a reminder to experiment with genres that you historically haven't liked. I am just not a puzzle person, and yet I found myself completely enraptured by this game's mysteries, just as I did with Outer Wilds or Return of the Obra Dinn. Some games transcend their genres, and Blueprints is one of them. Of course, that isn't to say that everyone will enjoy this game. Nothing is for everyone, but at the start of this video, I wondered if there were any way that this game could actually live up to the hype. For my money, it absolutely can. Even as I'm writing this script, all I can think about is jumping back into the mansion for another run, to see what other secrets it holds. Rarely does a video game constrict my thoughts as tightly as this one has, AAA or otherwise. It just goes to show that in the midst of open worlds and massive explosions, which can occasionally all blur together, that quirky little game you don't fully understand may be exactly what pulls you back in.